Little Nightmare's ever-expanding universe has built its unsettling reputation on a series of disturbing places, recognisable characters, and their questionable decisions. A twisted narrative of fear and bravery, fight and flight, loyalty and betrayal. A story that, no matter how it's interpreted, always leaves us void of true understanding, trapped with an insatiable hunger for knowledge and a longing for answers. Answers to so many questions, the most heavily debated of which is simply, why? I've contemplated this very question while combing through the franchise from start to finish, and feel that if we pay particular attention to the finer details of the latest material, we may just find the answer to one of Little Nightmare's most controversial mysteries. So take a step back, little ones. I invite you to consider this heartbreaking decision from another perspective, from the outside, looking in. This is the simulation theory. But first, the obligatory spoiler warning. This video will of course contain spoilers for everything revealed to us at the Little Nightmares showcase back in June of 2025, which of course includes Little Nightmares 3 and the Little Nightmares stop motion project. All of which, if you are not familiar with yet, I suggest you go back and watch the showcase before coming back to this video. Now with that being said, let me start by stating that this theory, at least for the moment, will be making a lot of assumptions about material that is not yet released, let alone confirmed. But as my regular viewers will understand, I believe there are enough links substantiating my thought process, and if you stick with me through my explanation, you might just come to agree. So let's begin. On June 24th, Bandai Namco and Supermassive Games presented us with the painfully exciting Little Nightmares showcase, during which they revealed a great many expansions to the haunting universe that we've all come to love and fear. Not least of which was an admittedly short but no less tantalising sneak peek at the upcoming Little Nightmares stop motion project. You know, the 23 seconds of that fans have been waiting for since Coraline producer Henry Selick discussed it back in 2017? Well, something I noticed after watching this clip was a curious similarity between the outfit worn by presumably the project's main character, Emmy, and Little Nightmares 3's first new enemy, Monster Baby. Yes, I know that I'm not the only one to notice this resemblance, and certainly not the first to point it out in a video. Don't worry, shoutouts and recognition will be given at the end of the video, as well as in the description below. But don't click away just yet, because there's a very good reason I bring this up. Because I caught something else that was perhaps not so obvious. Something that always struck me as bizarre about Monster Baby when compared to other residents of the Nowhere. Her name. Residents of the Nowhere have blunt and simple names which are reflective of the qualities they exude. The Teacher, the Hunter, the Thin Man. And while this is true of Monster Baby, given that she is quite clearly a monster of a baby, she's still an unusual case, with this terminology only ever being used to describe one other character in the franchise so far, Monster 6. Now, we understand that Monster 6, unlike other enemies we encounter in Little Nightmares 2, is not a resident of the Nowhere as such. She's more a construct of it. A warped and distorted projection of a traumatized and lonely individual who acts aggressively only in defense of her own safety. Unlike typical residents who take the term on site very literally. Monster 6 doesn't actually become a threat to Mono until his actions threaten her. Now, here's where I'm going to make an assumption and fabricate a somewhat believable backstory to help you to visualise my final point. But hear me out, because this might make sense. Let me explain. If you'll allow me to sidestep to a tangent point for just a moment, I'd like to bring your attention back to the stop motion project, where the girl is pictured in the counties and revealed to be named Emmy. Now, we know that children in the Nowhere don't carry their real names across the sill with them, leading to them adopting pseudonyms which they most likely associate with what little they do remember. such as Noon remembering her bullies, and Jester being given that moniker by other people, as he, quote, never runs out of jokes. It is possible that Emmy, once transported to the nowhere, is subject to the same memory clouding effects as the others, leading her to reference her own nowhere self by a name she recalls being called frequently by her parents or guardian, one of the most popular of which is Baby. Make sense? It's also possible that, similarly to Noon, Emmy was ridiculed by her family, siblings, or classmates for her childish affinity for dollhouses and toys, which may have resulted in her being called a big baby. Now, if we assume that Emmy, now Baby, conducts her own adventure through the nowhere, we can likely distinguish that it went about as well as everyone else's, resulting in her eventually losing herself to it, becoming consumed and warped and twisted until she becomes Monster Baby. She is not, nor was she ever, a resident of the nowhere, but a visitor gone awry. So, if true, how does this help us to explain the devastating ending to Little Nightmares 2? Well, what if the childlike qualities and subsequent chaos of these characters is also a symptom of their transformations? What if they seem so ready to accept their place within the nowhere, even going so far as to aggressively defend it when threatened, is because they don't know? What if, once corrupted, the nowhere hijacks the mind of its latest vessel and uses their core memories and emotions to simulate an idyllic reality? One where they're free to play with their dollhouse forever, free to enjoy an ever-expanding collection of toys from the happiest moments of their lives. One where they are safe in their childhood bedroom, surrounded by their most prized possessions and sacred comforts. A vision which, when disturbed, they perceive as a dangerous monster trying to drag them kicking and screaming back to the haunting ethereal nightmare realm. What if, when Mono breaches the signal tower and rescues Six for the last time and destroys the music box, he simultaneously shatters the illusion of her being safe and sound in the comfort of her room, which leads her to perceive her rescue as Mono being the one who brought her back? When considering a great many speculations on why Six would betray Mono after everything he did for her, this one feels like it makes sense to me. Put yourself in Six's shoes, metaphorically speaking. A traumatized child with a distorted memory, her only recollections being of two worlds. One filled with your greatest fears and deepest insecurities. The other being the waking world, where you are safe from the monsters that live in your dreams. Now imagine that in your mind, you have your escape. You woke from the nightmare and are safe and happy in your childhood bedroom, when suddenly you are torn from your peaceful life and thrust unwillingly back into a world filled with your most crippling fears made manifest by its very existence, and the only tangible connection between the waking world and this one is him. TLDR, if this theory is correct, then it stands to reason that Six dropped Mono in an attempt to sever her connection with him, because as far as she's aware, she was safe and happy, and then he brought her back. But let me know what you guys think. This was a lot of fun to think about, and this theory came to me during one of our live community theory crafting sessions. This theory in particular was inspired by contributions made by several members of my community whilst discussing legendary Little Nightmares theorist It's Just George's video on Emmy's connection to the Monster Baby, with particular recognition going to Saya for their thought-provoking comments which led to this theory. And if you want to join in with our community theory crafting sessions, where you can share your thoughts, theories, speculations and observations with all of us, you're more than welcome to join us and make your voices heard. Subscribe to the channel and ring that little notification bell so that you can be notified the next time I go live, where I will actively try to read your comments and address your theories in the live chat in real time. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. So until next time, that's game over. Bye.